So you're thinking about walking the Camino, but you're unsure what the cost will be. This video will break down the cost we spent for 31 days walking Camino de Fatima and Camino Portuguese from Porto to Santiago. We spent 31 days walking the Camino. 23 of those days were walking, 8 days were rest and recovery days after Aurora had she had 3 epileptic seizures, so she had some recovery days. 2 days were traveling from Fatima to Porto, and we spent an extra day in Santiago at the end of our Camino. If you haven't watched any of the Camino series, we'll put a link above here for you to watch those. Our expenses are broken down into 7 categories: food, accommodation, transportation, luggage transfer, laundry, medical, and miscellaneous. The first category is food. And I'm going to use my cheat notes here because I want to make sure I get my numbers right. So we spent a total of 1,075 euros over the 31 days, which breaks down to $34.68 euros per day, or 1734 euros per person per day. Our expenses are breaking down into restaurant and groceries, but we did find we spent more money on groceries. We just shopped more at the grocery stores than we did eating out, partly because we found it difficult to find restaurants and cafes. Well, we found cafes, but they just had pastries for the most part in Portugal. So we just found it easier. We always carried along fruit, nuts, granola bars, power bars, things like that. And of course, cookies. We always had cookies in our backpack too. That just made it easier and less stressful if we didn't come across a restaurant along our way. Tip for food: if you pass a restaurant that offers food besides pastries, sit down and eat. Chances are you're not going to find another restaurant up the way. We passed by so many restaurants thinking, oh, it's too early to eat. And as a result, we kind of went hungry a couple days until we got to a bigger city where there was food. So tip is, if you find a restaurant, stop, get a sandwich. Even if it's a sandwich to go, just get one and take it along with you. The second category is accommodation. The accommodations we stayed in included hostels, albergues, and hotels. We spent a total of 1,377 euros on accommodations over the 31 days we walked the Camino, at an average cost of 44 euros per night, or 22 euros per person per night. Because of Aurora's epilepsy and the amount of seizures she was having, we opted to book private accommodations, which cost us a little bit more than what we initially anticipated and what many pilgrims would spend. So we spent almost $1,400 on accommodations, which I don't think is actually that bad. We were quite happy with our accommodations, so we're good with that. Of the 31 days, we spent 19 of those days in private accommodations with a private bathroom, and 9 of those 31 days in a private room with a shared bathroom. We spent 3 nights in an albergue, which is a bunk bed, just because it was at the beginning of our Fatima stage of our Camino, and that's all we could find along the way. So that's sort of how our accommodation breakdown goes. So we were good with that. We were pretty happy with our accommodations. Now, tip is, because there was 2 of us traveling, we found it almost cheaper, or just a few euros more, to have the private room and the private bath. And just that was worth it. We enjoyed having our privacy and having our own bathroom, and we could just spill all of our stuff out and not worry about interfering with disrupting other pilgrims if you were in an albergue. So we enjoyed that. We thought that was worth the few extra euros. So that's what we did. No regrets. Category number 3 is transportation. We spent 99 euros on transportation. We are not including flights to Lisbon or flights back home. We're just not that would be a different cost for everybody. So we're not including that in this budget rollout. So we spent $99. About 60 of that was taxis that we had to take when Aurora had to go to the emergency when we were in Fatima. So about $60 was taxis coming back from the ER because it was in a different town. And just before we got to Fatima, we had to take a taxi. She was feeling ill and we took a taxi into Fatima. So we spent about $30 getting to Fatima, and then we spent another $30 getting back from the ER to Fatima. So about $60 was in those taxis. We also spent $13 on taxis to cross a couple of bridges. I don't like heights and I don't like bridges. So I opted to spend a few euros to have a taxi transport me across the bridge. And we spent another 26 euros, so 13 euros each, for a Flixbus to take us from Fatima to Porto to start the second part of our Camino. So 99 euros for transportation. Okay, category 4 is luggage transfer. We had our backpacks transferred 4 times. So 3 of those times, 2 bags were transferred, and just the one time, just my bag was transferred. And that was a total of 50 euros. The prices range between 6 and 9 euros per bag. We found they got a little bit more pricey the closer we got to Santiago. We decided to transfer our bags on days that we knew we were going to walk farther, and we just were a little bit concerned about Aurora's health and not wanting to wear her out. So we thought transferring our bags would be easier, would give us an opportunity to walk a little bit farther and make it easier for her. So it was worth the 50 euros for us. That being said, we did not transfer any of our backpacks after or prior to we got to Tui. So it was just that last 4 days of the Camino. I think if you're wanting to have your bags transferred prior to Tui, I think there's a little bit more legwork individually that you have to do. We did not see any luggage transfer tags at our accommodations, as they were once we got to Tui, and it was just easier to fill out the form there and arrange to make a call. And we had a couple of albergues or hotel hosts would call for us and have it arranged that our bags would be picked up. So we didn't have much problem, but we only did it 4 times. We have another small 5th category, which is laundry. And we did our own laundry every night. We hand washed it every night. And there was only 3 times that we had paid to use a washing machine. They weren't very available for us. They just weren't in our accommodations as an option for us to use a washing machine. So it was 3 times that we had used a washing machine while we were walking the Camino, and that came to 8 euros. We were pretty happy. Our 6th category is one that we hope no other pilgrim has to include in their budget, but it's a good safety net if you do. And that is medical and pharmacy costs. We spent 220 euros in this category. And this includes $192 that we paid for the fees for when Aurora went to the emergency after having a seizure and hurting herself. So that was that. And then we also had to pay another small amount, like 26 euros for a physician to write her a new prescription to get more medication for her epilepsy. So that was 192 euros that we had to pay. And then we had, on top of that, we had some pharmacy costs. And I'm just looking at my notes here. And the pharmacy was another 28 euros. And that was for her epilepsy medication and some blister medication care products, Band-Aids and such. So 220 euros for medical and pharmacy costs. Our final category is miscellaneous. That's where we dumped everything in that was left over. And this includes our cell phone plan. We used Vodafone, and we paid full 25 euros per phone. We each had a phone, and that was 25 euros. And I think it gave us like 10 gigabytes, and it was actually a pretty good deal. And it allowed us to use it in Portugal and in Spain. So it made it easy for us. So to us, it was worth the extra, the euros, the 25 euros each. We also, this category of 185 euros includes our Compostelas, our shells, our all of that kind of stuff, any souvenirs we bought. It also includes the 14 euros that we spent on shipping a package from Portugal onto Santiago so it could meet us there when we got there, and the $20 that it cost to store our bag until we picked it up. So all of those little its and bits that we spent came to 185 euros under miscellaneous. So now for the drum roll. The grand total is 3,014 euros for 2 people to walk the Camino for 31 days. That works out to roughly 100 euros per day or 50 euros per person per day. Now in Canadian, I'm going to look at my cheat notes. Canadian dollars, because we're Canadian, that works out to $4,327 or $140 per day for the 2 of us, or $70 per person per day. We were pretty happy with that. And I know there's going to be expenses that you'll have that are a little bit different. You probably won't have the medical expenses that we did, but that's what our cost. We hope this budget has helped you plan out your Camino trip and made it a little bit easier to budget. And if you have completed your Camino and you've kept track of your budget, let us know how off we are or how close we are to your budget. We're interested to see how we did in comparison to others. So, and a final note, we're going to close this up, and we'll ask you to tune in next week when we post our video on our favorite accommodations on the Camino. We'll see you next week. Thanks, guys.